What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to Bona Fide Talk. Really appreciate you guys tuning in again today. I'm alongside my co-host as usual. We've got Cameron Campbell, Blake Manzer, the Brian Eduardo, and yours truly, Garrett Lusk. Appreciate you guys tuning in. This is episode 4, like I have already mentioned. So we're getting up there. We're getting wiser. Each episode, we're developing gray hairs as we get smarter, and hopefully we're getting better. You guys continue to give us feedback and let us know where we can improve and what you guys want to hear from us and what you don't want to hear. But we think we've got a good slate today to talk about. So y'all stay tuned and listen in. Guys, to get started, first off, we want to shout out our YouTube listeners that are watching us right now. Guys, real quick, why don't you touch live on YouTube? Why don't you guys tell the crowd what you're drinking?
I'll go first. All right. I'm drinking a little Terrapin Hopscutioner.
Classic.
Yeah. Killing it.
No,
Classic.
Classic City.
All right, I'll go next. So I'm drinking a nice vodka lemon juice mixed drink inside of a Rolling Rock glass.
That's so misleading because you hold up a glass and it says Rolling Rock, and you're like, yeah, it's a mixed drink. I'm like, dude,
Yeah,
what?
Just vodka and lemon juice.
Classic Manzer.
I ran out of beer.
Wait, Manzer, real quick.
What's up?
Go ahead, Brian.
Same thing, just another Monday. You probably couldn't see that. Creature Comforts. Today, though, we got the Bebo instead of Classic City.
Bebo.
All right. Pretty solid.
On all
How about
the
you,
Athens
Lusky
guys,
boy?
like we talked about last week, are loyal to the soil. Guys, you know me. I'm as domestic beer as they come, so I'm drinking a Miller Lite. Shout out to my boys.
There we
I
go.
guess those are those the Milwaukee guys or are those the St. Louis guys? Man, I can't keep up. But Miller Coors, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
Shout out
Miller
to you guys.
Coors.
Making an average cheap product for me to continue to fill my fridge. Like real quick, why don't you tell the crowd why you ran out of beer? I don't have any beer or seltzers to drink. Crowd about that.
We pounded too many beers last weekend. Had a
What
cooler,
we do?
had a cooler full of beer and finished it off real quickly in the span of like 2 hours down on the beaches of Charleston. Good old Folly Beach.
Yeah, man. So for you guys, so two of our co-hosts got to hang out this weekend. Manzer is he's our lone wolf that's not in the great state of Georgia. So I was in Charleston this weekend and had to hang out on the beach for. That was not 2 hours. That was like 6 or 7 hours, man. My back is so burnt. No way that was only 2 hours.
Dude.
But we hit the beach. We hit the beach on Saturday. Took a 45 quart cooler of beer and ice and ran out. It was a lot lighter to carry it back than it was to carry it on. So.
Oh yeah, that was nice. I've got a nice little
So we,
Batman symbol on my back where Ben forgot to apply the sunscreen. It's like the shape of the typical Batman bat wings. So I'm gonna have a nice.
Manzer, is it still there?
Oh
we
yeah.
We need to get a picture of that onto the Instagram.
Yeah, that'll be the thumbnail of this video.
Jeez.
Blake Batman Manzer. Back at it again.
That's me. Better than Robin.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of this weekend, we're actually going to start off with our first topic of the day. And this one I think is one that I really want to lay up for Cameron. I want to alley-oop this one to you. So, one thing that we talked a lot about this weekend was the concept of ghosting. Cameron, I think you're very familiar with that concept of ghosting.
I've been ghosted a few times.
Have you ever ghosted? Have you ever ghosted anyone?
Have I ever ghosted? I mean, I'd say once or twice.
Okay.
You just lose
who
interest.
Have you ghosted?
You don't respond.
Who have you ghosted before?
I mean, I'm not gonna get into any names or anything.
Have you ever ghosted a buddy trying to collect fantasy football money for fantasy football league before?
Oh my God!
Defend yourself now.
Is that what you were talking about with Ben? Dude, I can't wait
Defend
to just
yourself
see
now.
Ben in person and just
Dude,
be like,
Ben hates you.
I don't give a shit about fantasy football anymore. Like, I don't want to be put in the group this year. I didn't say anything last year, but I should have. I should have just said before the season, I don't want to be in it. Like, I don't give a shit. But I was just like, whatever. I'll still be able to log in and just see what's happening. So I just didn't even say anything, didn't respond. But I don't want to be in it. Like I don't.
Okay, that's all right. That's fine. Listeners, I'm gonna give you some background. So we've had a high school hometown fantasy football league for the last 5 years. It's been going strong. We've had a good group. It's a good way for us to all stay in touch with each other. It's been a lot of fun. And last year, we had 2 guys leave, and so we were down to 10 guys, right? And so, every year we collect money from everybody to, get a pot going. And it was just kind of like, that's just part of the fantasy football league. You play for money, and everyone puts in money, right? So Ben Wynette, our commissioner, was texting everyone collecting the money. He texted Cameron, and Cameron didn't respond. So he's like, okay, Cameron, like, what's going on here? So he starts, shooting some calls. He starts reaching out to mutual friends, like, hey, can you get hold of Cameron? Hopefully he's okay. Like, he's like genuinely worried about the man. And Cameron straight up has ghosted him for over a year on every social media platform, on his phone number, phone calls, text messages, all around. Straight up ghosted himself.
Oh, he's reached
Cameron,
out to
I'm gonna give you
so many times.
How many times do you think he's reached out to you, dude? The number.
Oh man, more than a baker's dozen, bro. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I laugh after the first. I mean, I felt bad for a minute, but then at some point, I just decided like, I'm not gonna pay. I didn't want to play. I never said anything in the league chat before the season even started. So at some point, I was just like, I'm not gonna pay it. So it just became funny for me at some point. I was just like, oh my god, bad. But I felt bad. I still felt bad.
What if you won?
I still feel bad.
What would you have done with the money if you won the league?
There's no way. I mean, I would have just
kept it,
given it back, thrown a party. Who knows? I don't know what I would have done. Try to do something. I wouldn't. There's no way I would have won though. There's no way.
Well, good thing you didn't.
Oh, all the listeners
how
out
could
there.
you when you're not keeping up with your team and you have benched players? I would check in and just see like if anything was going on, like what was happening, who was winning like most games and who was losing. But I would never remember to check in like before and set my lineup because I really didn't care. So it was always just people were benched and not playing and whatever. So it was just funny. I mean, I love Ben, and I can't wait to see him in person and talk about it.
God.
Oh, I'll tell you what. To all of our podcast listeners out there, keep this in mind. Never try to collect money from Cameron Campbell. He'll just straight up ghost your ass. So keep that in mind. I will also keep that in mind.
If I owe you for something, I agreed to pay you back for. Oh my gosh.
Whatever, dude. I'm as a bitch. That's all I'm gonna say. All right, guys. So we had a few pretty cool things that happened this last week that we all want to give our 2 cents about. First off, most importantly, baby, we got Halo was released this week. Halo Infinite. The trailer was released. We've been waiting on this one for a long time. So Xbox, Microsoft, and Sony are releasing the new gaming consoles this Christmas season. So the new Halo Infinite is going to be released alongside the new gaming console. So we've been waiting on this one for a long time. Brian, why don't y'all tell us a little bit about what to expect from the new game and why it's going to live up to all the expectations we have from Halo 3?
Well, that's a bold comparison, throwing Halo 3 in that mix. But I haven't looked too much into the new game. But what I did do instead was go back and replay the Master Chief Collection, which that encompasses every Halo all the way to Halo 4. So started replaying some of those campaigns, trying to feel the nostalgia. But yeah, I'm excited. And I did a little more research too, just to look at like the timing between game releases. And I think in the whole Halo, I don't know if you call it a franchise or whatever, the series, this is the longest that they've gone without a game release. So I think Halo 5 came out in like 2015, 2016. So that's a whole 5 years without a Halo game. So the expectations are going to be high. I've heard some things like it might be kind of like an RPG style, which for those that aren't as nerdy as us, that means it's more like a free roam game as opposed to multiplayer and then campaign. So that'll be interesting. I don't know, Blake, do you have any more specs on like what the game is actually going to look like? I don't know if you did any more in-depth research about it than I did.
So I've just seen some articles and little blurbs here and there on social media. So I know a big like point of controversy when it was when the reveal trailer was released was that it just didn't really look that good compared to some other video games or like past Halos. Which, like you said, this game has been 5 years in development, so you would expect it, especially with today's technology, for it to look super good. But I've been reading stuff late or more recently saying that they still have like a lot of polishing to do, and so when the game is released, they're gonna update some of the textures and include this new thing that's been coming out with more recent video games, which is ray tracing. So for those of you who don't know what ray tracing is it provides more lifelike lighting to the game. So if you think of like the sun, how the sun like produces shadows, and like you can see rays of the sun in like real life, and how different objects are brighter or less bright based on like where they are in reference to the sun. So essentially what ray tracing does is it makes the game more lifelike in terms of what the lighting effects are. So that's rumored to come to Halo shortly after it's released. And so ray tracing is a feature that's pretty new, really. And both the new consoles are going to support ray tracing. So essentially, in English terms, it's just a more lifelike experience in terms of like the actual image quality of the game.
Do you think they'll be able to make me look this white with the ray tracing?
You're even whiter.
You'll just do that for yourself.
You're just going to be completely transparent.
Jesus.
Is that why you're so good at ghosting people?
That's the next step. Oh,
oh no, Manzer! He went there! Oh,
no!
Damn!
Jeez.
Flip it! Let's go into the Insta, baby. Yes, sir. All right, Cameron, defend yourself.
I can't.
Can't do anything.
I'm too distraught. I'm too distraught. I can't.
But yeah, so another interesting thing about Halo. So some of you guys already know this, and some of our listeners might as well. But it's not going to be Xbox exclusive, which is crazy.
That's stupid.
I don't know, dude. So obviously all the previous Halos have come out exclusively for Xbox in previous years because it's a Microsoft-owned game. And recently the Halo Master Chief Collection came out on PC, even though, as Brian and I learned earlier today, it's not crossplay, which is stupid. Yeah, Master Chief Collection's on PC now. So obviously Halo Infinite is coming out for Xbox, and it's also going to be released on Steam day one. So Steam is like where PC players tend to buy their games from. And it hasn't been confirmed to come out on PlayStation, but I'm looking at this article right now, and Phil Spencer, who's the head of Xbox, he's been a supporter of crossplay. He's been quoted for supporting crossplay, meaning not just Xbox. So if it's coming out for Xbox, it's coming out for Steam. I feel like it's pretty likely that it might be on PlayStation too.
Nah, they won't do that.
PlayStation?
They can't.
I don't know.
So here's what I'll say real quick.
They don't deserve Halo.
I agree. I definitely second that. Here's what I'll say real quick though. If you are, I'm sorry, who's the company that makes? Is it 343?
Yep.
Right, if you were 343, why would you cut yourself off to that much possible revenue? Why would you cut yourself off to that many gamers who like use different consoles, but like want to play the game? You know what I mean? Like if you have the ability to, why not open yourself up to all those potential customers? I think it's a smart business move on their behalf.
Gives you a bag.
Yeah, but Microsoft is already making the transition to PC gaming. I mean, that's where gaming's headed. They've already got their whole like Xbox app and all that. So, I don't know. It like I said, it's not confirmed, but I feel like it's fairly likely that it would come to PlayStation too.
All right, so all you guys out there, you know what to ask for Christmas this year. You get the new Xbox and then you get the new Halo Infinite. We're looking forward to it. Hopefully, it lives up to our expectations. We all here have many days on Halo 3 on Xbox 360. I'd be scared to know how many days of gameplay I have on there.
How many months?
This was really. Oh yeah, honestly, yeah, sad. But this was really interesting. Another thing that kind of happened this week, boys. Did y'all see the meltdown among the people's candidate for the 2020 presidential election? Kanye West himself, his first campaign rally. So in 2016 he threw a threat out there of running. Apparently in 2020 he's definitely going to run. He even shaved 2020 to the side of his head. Apparently, showed up to a campaign rally, and let's just say Kanye had one of his. All right, Siri.
Lose you, Garrett?
To her. Kanye had one of his typical meltdowns. He got up there in front of a bunch of people, completely collapsed under the pressure, and he started rambling on about like abortion and like possible divorce with like Kim Kardashian, like all this stuff, man. Pretty funny, as if people thought that was actually going to be like an option for the election. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this happens every time, but
hey, that's who I vote for.
I write him in, man.
2020.
I'm voting for
you exercise that. Exercise that right that your founding fathers gave you, and you write in Kanye West 2020. You do that, Cameron.
Damn right. I will.
Right, beast, whatever. We don't really know too much about it. It really doesn't mean a damn thing. It's not happening, but worth mentioning, just because it's pretty expected. But speaking of government, I don't know anything about this, so I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. But the Pentagon has confirmed UFOs. Defend that.
All right, so I just overlaid this article. So the headline from Popular Mechanics, which is like a legitimate news source, says that
it's not fake news.
It says that the Pentagon has off-world vehicles not made on this Earth, and so in this article it refers to an initial article released by the New York Times that confirms the accounts. And so it says that the government's UFO unit currently resides in the Office of Naval Intelligence, where it deals with classified matters. Per the report, even though the unit itself isn't classified, oh, that was the end of that sentence. I don't know how to read. The Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force is meant to standardize the collection and reporting of sightings on UFOs, essentially. So basically,
so
with
you want to know what I heard?
Well, can I finish?
Oh, Garrett. Yeah, finish. Sorry, I didn't know you were still reading off.
So essentially, the Pentagon has come out and so a few months ago they released declassified footage from some military fighter jets that caught two separate instances. One from like early 2000s, I don't exactly remember the year, and then one from 2015, where they caught on military cameras, on those jets, these what the Pentagon is calling unidentified aerial phenomena. So they've changed it from UFO to UAP. And these reports are corroborated by the actual Navy pilots who took this footage, stating that these craft are, defying the conventional laws of flight that we know with today's current technology, essentially stating that they don't know what the hell they are. So when the Pentagon released this footage, they stated that they also didn't know what it was. They came out and said that it wasn't, to their knowledge, it wasn't American vehicles. And so now, more recently, they've come out and stated that they either have or have contact with these off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. So essentially confirming UFOs. And
Whoa.
Confirming that UFOs in the past have been alien to this world is what you're saying.
Yes, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that is what you're saying.
Yes, yeah. So off-world vehicles. So I don't know, maybe the moon. Maybe there's a base on the moon where these vehicles come from. But personally, this topic of UFOs is something that I'm pretty interested in. We can go down that rabbit hole if you want, but you might not want to.
So-
Let's do
Brian,
it.
you had something to say?
A little bit.
Yeah. So I know what it is. Listen. So we just had, remember that space launch we had a couple months ago from Elon Musk,
Yeah.
and then
Like last-
also the Tesla Roadster is set to be unveiled here pretty shortly in its full production form. So, what we don't know, but Elon was sneaky. One of those Tesla Roadsters got put in that little rocket ship, and we're about to have the first car unveiling from another galaxy or world or whatever.
Whoa.
And the Tesla Roadster is in that rocket ship, and it's going to come from the outer orbits and be unveiled.
Brian,
Boom.
how much weed did you
Dispelled.
smoke before
Conspiracy.
this podcast?
Oh, that's quite the
just fact,
theory,
right?
Brian.
He had a Sweetwater 420, and now he's freaking. So,
Oh my God.
hey,
We'll wait on
I'm actually all for that. And also, I was gonna ask, how is it that every podcast we somehow end up talking about Tesla? Like,
are
we just- are we the unofficial Tesla podcast?
the unofficial underground
No.
Tesla podcast?
But so all right, Blake. Here's my question. So, does this now mean that we can go on a vacation to Area 51?
I think we should storm it. Storm Area 51 2.0.
Yeah,
we
that
were
went
supposed
well.
to in 2019.
Dude, whatever the government had at Area 51, they've long since abandoned ever since people started finding out about
know what
that
it was?
shit.
Coronavirus.
Where is it?
Oh, it's the 5G actually. 5G is creating these vehicles and coronavirus.
So where are these UFOs then if they moved them from Area 51?
So, all right. So if you listen to the Bob Lazar story, so there was never any UFOs kept at Area 51. They were kept at a separate location, which was kind of under the wing of Area 51. On I think it's Ellis Air Force Base out in Nevada. So he worked at a place called Area S4, and so he claimed that he specifically worked on one alien craft, I guess is the way I'll put that, and was specifically assigned to reverse engineer the propulsion system. But he also stated that he, everything is super compartmentalized and highly secure there. So he only gets to see what he's working on. But he did say that at one point while he was working there, he caught a glimpse of like a hangar that housed what he counted housed 9 various different craft of different shapes and sizes that he said were not anything like what you would imagine a typical fighter jet to look like.
Whoa.
And so he said, and I think that was like when he first showed up there. And so he stated that like when he first caught a glimpse of these, he kind of chuckled to himself. Was thinking, oh, all these UFO sightings that had been people had been talking about over the past X amount of years was just some highly advanced government project. But as he, as the months went by and as he got deeper and deeper into his project, he started to realize that the technology that these craft had and the flight capabilities that they had as well were way beyond the capabilities that we currently had, way beyond what current science knew.
So all right,
I will
Manzer,
say-
go ahead, Cameron.
So
was
I'll
Brian.
say that podcast. I'm normally a pretty big skeptic when it comes to stuff like that, but listening to it, some of the stuff the guy says, it is a pretty compelling argument.
Yeah,
I don't
the
even
dude's
know
a
if it's
legit
argument,
scientist.
more experience. Yeah.
And you've also got story. So one of these videos, I'll put all over the thing. So I think the one that my cursor's hovering over on the right, that was captured in, I believe it was the 2015 incident, just off the coast of San Diego. And so that pilot, Commander David Fravor, came out and talked about it, and just stating what he saw in the military instruments that were used to take a recording of this podcast, and he was saying that like this thing, it would come down. They were capturing it on the radar coming down from like the very top of the atmosphere. So the radar's capabilities go out to about 80,000 feet. And so he said that these things were coming in from at least 80,000 feet and down to around the surface of the ocean within a second. So 80,000 feet in a second. Just saying that these
My
things,
F-150 does that, brother.
Oh yeah, your Ford Raptor.
I thought you weren't a Ford guy, Garrett.
Oh yeah, man.
Truck,
That's
yeah,
why
brother.
I know.
That's
I got
why
me
I
a damn
said-
super. I got me a. Hey, brother, I got me a supercharger on there. Shit, it does 80,000 feet a second. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, I mean, without just getting too into the weeds here, just listening to that guy, a decorated military pilot, a relatively high level dude, no bullshit, talk about what he saw, and some of the things that they were dealing with seeing these craft it's pretty compelling.
So answer. If
up?
aliens are real, and I'm going to open the discussion to all of you guys, and we'll move on. If aliens are real, what movie are they most like? What movie depiction are aliens most like? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Predator.
Maybe.
I'm gonna go with Star Wars. They probably look like no Spaceballs. They all look like Pizza the Hut.
Oh yes.
Oh my gosh.
What about Coneheads?
Coneheads?
What
is that?
I have a couple of things to say on this. You haven't seen Coneheads?
No.
It's
What's the guy's name? Not
it's-
not Bill Murray. It's
I don't remember
Dan
his name.
Aykroyd.
Yeah.
Oh.
Funny little
Or
show.
Cameron.
But anyway, I wanted to talk about somebody else that was pretty high ranking. You mentioned Bob Lazar, and he has like what does he have, a documentary on Netflix and some other stuff.
Yeah, he's featured in
got
a
a-
documentary on Netflix.
And he was on Joe Rogan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's been all over the place, and a lot of people have been talking about him. One guy that's a little less known is Bill Cooper. He was looking into this a lot back, before the turn of the century, before the turn of the millennium. But he actually died back in 2001, shortly after 9/11. He actually predicted 9/11, predicted Osama bin Laden himself as a character, and predicted the war that would happen after 9/11. And then shortly after 9/11, he was killed on his property by Arizona police. So, but anyway, he talked a lot about aliens and stuff. He was high ranking in the Navy, and he thought they were aliens. He saw a lot of the same stuff Bob Lazar saw, but he went down a different path. Now, I've been a skeptic of everything I've heard from the government and news for a little while now, partially thanks to Donald Trump. But anyway, he has a book called "Behold a Pale Horse." I suggest looking at it, reading it. It's on Audible and YouTube, so you can pretty much just listen to it if you want. He's got a lot of content out there, but yeah, he's very interesting and talked a lot about aliens and how they might. Just get into some deep conspiracy stuff real quick, but that they might just be the government deflecting from the fact that they actually do have these super technologies back early 1900s, they were doing a lot of technology development super quickly, and we all know technology development's exponential. And they were actually, we know the U.S. government from Operation Paperclip was working with the Nazis and brought a lot of the Nazis here to the U.S. after World War II via Operation Paperclip with the CIA. And they were developing a lot of technologies in the early 1900s, and I think propulsion was one of them. My personal view is that a lot of these propulsion systems might be known to only the 1% of the 1%. Like, nobody practically knows about this in our government. And they put these other things out there about aliens to maybe confuse us.
Interesting.
That's my 2 cents.
Okay.
But I would look into Bill Cooper if I were y'all. Check out that book I mentioned. And he says a lot of interesting stuff.
So the government coming out and basically giving us a hint, wink, wink about UFOs and aliens does not answer our question. It only provokes more. So tune in. This is the unofficial Tesla / aliens are real podcast. We look forward to future discussions. Next week, we will talk about MK Ultra. Psych. Anyway, speaking of conspiracy theory, why? All right, so here we go. Why doesn't our country and most of the world use the clean possible energy source in the world? And nuclear energy. Nuclear energy. We had a I don't know, how many beers did we have? Like 6, 8, 12 when we started talking about this at the beaches on Saturday, Blake. We really started talking about this, and as a physicist, Andrew, I'd love for you to kind of give us a little insight here on nuclear energy and some of the specifics there, because we had a really cool conversation that I think that you guys will like to listen to as far as the downfalls, the scary stuff there, etc. So I'm going to let the smart guy in the room tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first, that's flattering, Garrett, but I wouldn't call myself a physicist. Just a guy who learned a lot of stuff and also work in the nuclear industry technically. But so yeah, it's a very interesting topic. And so, like you said, it is the cleanest and most efficient known source of energy production, stemming back from its conception from World War II. So I'll start off this discussion from a quote that I found when I was doing some research last night. All right, so the quote says, "One reason why nuclear power is seen differently to other technologies lies in its parentage and birth. Nuclear energy was conceived in secrecy, born of war, and first revealed to the world in horror. No matter how many proponents try to separate the peaceful atom from the weapons atom, the connection is firmly embedded in the mind of the public."
Well
so that's a pretty powerful quote, honestly, and it carries a lot of weight to it. So as we all know, the United States was the first country to develop nuclear weapons and the first and only country to actually deploy them on another country, effectively ending World War II. So nuclear power was revealed to the world in horror, essentially, showing its destructive power and its might. So that really burned an image in the American public, as well as the world, of the capabilities that splitting the atom has. So I think that's one reason why Americans are so, they tie the word nuclear to nuclear bomb, which is,
Right.
our most powerful weapon that we know of. But it's also a great source of energy. So when you split an atom through fission, you release immense amount of energy, and if controlled properly, and that's the key statement, controlled properly, you can really have a super effective source of clean power. So nuclear energy, it's carbon neutral. It doesn't release any hazardous byproducts into the atmosphere. The main radioactive material is the toxic waste produced from nuclear power plants. So that's the key. That's really the main thing that you have to overcome with nuclear power.
Right.
But so from the inception of the nuclear bomb, the nuclear era was born. Americans thought that that's where the future was headed. It was projected that we'd have, I think when I was reading yesterday, we'd have over 1,000 operating nuclear power plants by 2000. That was at least the projections back in the 1950s, and that
Right.
we'd be a nuclear nation. And we do so. America currently produces 20% of its power from nuclear energy. We're currently the largest producer of nuclear power in the world.
Wow.
That's uh, because of some incidents that I'll talk about here in just a minute. That's kind of been sliding. The Russians and the Chinese are starting to kind of catch up on us with that. But we do produce a decent amount of power from nuclear energy. And so that's the field that I work in. I work for the nuclear navy, and we've been safely deploying nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers since the 1950s. So one thing that the Navy prides itself on is we've had no major nuclear incidents in the 60 years that we've been steaming on nuclear power. So that
Banzer,
shows
real
you.
quick. Let me give you a breather real quick. So nuclear submarines, and I actually did not know exactly what this meant when we had our discussion. So real quick, tell us what a nuclear submarine is. Does that mean it's carrying around nuclear bombs under the waters, under cruise ships? Like what exactly does that mean?
So yes and no. So the Navy has two different types of submarines. We call them fast attack submarines and boomers. Essentially, those are the more layman's terms. So all Navy submarines are powered by a nuclear reactor. They're all nuclear powered, but the fast attack submarines don't carry a nuclear payload. Whereas the boomers, the real big submarines that are much bigger than the fast attack subs, those do carry nuclear payloads. So those are used for nuclear deterrence and maintaining our establishment in the oceans around the world. So
Right.
yeah, they're all nuclear powered, but they don't all carry nuclear weapons.
All of them?
All, yeah. Every submarine is powered by a
Wow.
nuclear reactor. Yeah,
Wow.
which is a huge military
and why,
advantage.
and right. And why exactly are submarines specifically powered by nuclear?
So submarines are really the best tool we have maintaining stealth in the oceans around the world. So they're essentially undetectable for the most part. And so the reason why you want a nuclear powered sub rather than like a diesel powered sub, which are what a lot of the older aircraft carriers and destroyers were powered by. So if you have a nuclear power source, then you can effectively stay underwater for months and months at a time. The only reason why you would come back up is to restock on food and to just give the sailors underwater a break, essentially.
Wow.
Because you make your own oxygen and you make your own water. The only thing you need to resupply is food and mental energy, essentially. So that's a huge advantage, just keeping us deployable for months at a time without coming up.
Okay.
Right.
What
So go
about
ahead.
what about other ships in the fleet? Are they nuclear powered or are they?
Yep. So a lot of the current aircraft carriers are nuclear powered. So I think going back to the Nimitz class aircraft carriers, that's when we started employing nuclear power plants to propel an aircraft carrier. But before that, they were all diesel powered. So Nimitz, and then the most recent model is the Ford class. Those are all nuclear powered, and then previously diesel for the aircraft carriers. And so really the main ships that the Navy has in its fleet are submarines, aircraft carriers, and destroyers. We don't have battleships anymore. That was a World War II thing. So destroyers are all diesel powered for the most part. There have been some test ones that were nuclear powered, but that just hasn't shown to be super effective as of yet. But I could see future destroyers being nuclear powered given the Navy's reputation.
Right on. So with the with the success of the obviously over the last few decades with nuclear submarines, how can nuclear energy be transmitted to the civilian life in our country, whether it be overtaking, electrical power grids, whether it be, being available in the common household? Like, what will that process look like? And what are the dangers also attached to that? Like,
So you would really have to have a shifting of the American mindset. So the some of you guys may be familiar with the 3 Mile Island incident in 1979, where
not much. Can you talk a little bit about that?
yeah, so 3 Mile Island was one of the largest nuclear power plants we had. And I believe 3 Mile Island I think it's in New Jersey, somewhere in the Northeast. And it was one of the largest nuclear power plants we had at the time. And so there was essentially a malfunction in one of the valves that were meant to keep the reactor cool. So with a lot of heat, you have to control the amount of heat generated by circulating water throughout the plant in order to keep it cool, in order to keep it from melting down. But because one of those valves failed open, um, that that coolant that was supposed to be cooling the reactor went somewhere else, and so the reactor melted
Right.
down. And so when you hear the term meltdown, that means that the reactor core physically melted down, like it got so hot that there was damage within the core, um, and so that just brings on a whole new set of dangers. So once the core melts down, it essentially there's like an exponential rise in heat and energy generation, and if left uncontrolled, then it's not going to explode. It's not like a nuclear bomb. It's a completely different mechanism, but there can
Right.
be a big release of radioactivity and radioactive material. And so
And that's pretty similar to what happened in Chernobyl, right?
yeah,
Sorry.
Chernobyl was a disaster, and I honestly don't know a whole lot, but I do know that there was a huge release of radioactive material in Chernobyl. But the last thing I'll say about 3 Mile Island, so it's kind of like so it's a negative event in the history of nuclear energy, but it also highlights the extremely conservative design aspects and safety features in nuclear power plants. So like I said, the reactor melted down, but because of the safety features employed within that plant, no radioactive material was released to the public. So no one was hurt or killed in the incident. No workers or you know people that lived around the plant, and there's never the people who lived around the plant had been tested since and over the following years for any sort of like radiation related cancers and sicknesses, and there's been nothing attributed to a radiation release. So all that essentially the plant was enclosed in a real thick layer of concrete, and that captured all the radioactive material that came out as a result of the meltdown. So that highlights some of the how good we are at preventing a disaster like Chernobyl from happening.
Also,
Yeah.
have those techniques been updated as far as the cores themselves and the uranium used? Because while I was doing my research, mostly on this topic was just videos. I didn't read anything on nuclear power, but I saw that they were developing different ways to get uranium into the core and uh, you know stop meltdowns from happening at all. Have has the actual technology behind nuclear power and how it works been updated and more safe?
Yeah, so it's definitely been optimized over the years. I don't know exactly what you're referring to with the type of fuel used um, in regards to uranium, but it's so the way that you shut down a reactor is you insert control rods, which are they essentially absorb all those neutrons that would otherwise go on to cause fission and stop the reactor from operating, essentially. So that's kind of been optimized over the years. There's been better control rod design, better reactor design to maximize the safety and also power output of the reactor. Um, but the details of that, I'm honestly not super knowledgeable about.
So the future, real quick, wrap this up. So the future of nuclear energy from a consumer and from like an American like commercial level, just in like a final statement, like what do you think is the future of nuclear energy in our country given its past?
So I think the future's bright. There since the '90s, there's been a shift in the American public's perception of nuclear, and within the administrations that have led the country since then. So I think a lot of people are starting to realize the need for a cleaner source of energy. Given the current state of the climate and how people feel about global warming and climate change, especially our generation is super aware of our impact on the environment. So I think there's a real big push for cleaner sources of energy. I think nuclear has to play a big role in that until we start to make other technologies better and more cost effective. So yeah, I think the future is bright. Other countries for sure are starting to ramp up their production of nuclear power plants. The United States is currently in a little bit of a lull period right now with that, but I think I think it looks bright. That's my opinion on that.
Right on, Blake. That was awesome insight. We really appreciate the free lecture that you just gave to us and our listeners. So appreciate that.
Anytime.
I want to give you a breather so you can catch your breath here after teaching us a little bit. I do want to talk about another. Yeah, not that loud. Come on now, easy. So I do want to talk about another clash of science, politics, and kind of like a pretty like a more relevant power struggle going on in today's America that we're dealing with, similar to what we just talked about with nuclear energy, but a different kind of power struggle, a different kind of clash of relative science and politics, etc. And that's face masks. Okay, so face masks have kind of become a hotbed of discussion, especially in America over the last couple months with the state of our time, where we're kind of at. But the thing is it's been such an message, from leadership, right? Like we've really, realized that there's like there's a void of leadership, not only in our country but kind of across the board in our world today. Basically, what I'm referencing here is going back to early March. You had CDC had health officials telling people not to wear masks, that they weren't going to be effective, that we needed to save the masks for health officials. And then you go a couple weeks later and we're told to wear masks. We're told, that they work. We're told they don't work. Frankly, surrounding the coronavirus state, we don't really know what the truth is. We've been led in so many different directions over the last few months. You've got people dividing, their stances on masks on political lines today. So we just kind of want to talk today and tonight about what do we think? What have we read? What have we researched? Where do we see the truth? Where do we see the fiction? We just kind of want to hash it out. Okay, so my first. Sorry, she's always listening to me. So my first question to you guys is: are face masks effective?
I mean,
So
I'd
if
say
you go-
yeah, to some extent.
Yeah,
Right?
I think they're effective.
But if you Google it, and Google tells all, right? But the first thing that pops up is a lot of like CDC guidelines, more like I don't know WHO type stuff that you would think is gonna be like pro face masks, and a lot of the stuff I was seeing just on brief research was saying, yeah, they might be slightly effective, but in terms of flattening a curve, I don't think that's really gonna be a huge deterrent for that.
Right.
But then also that brings up the conversation: are we still trying to flatten a curve, or are we just kind of all over the place with the onset of this virus already, to where just it's all over the place? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. So going back to the effective conversation, I did a little bit of research today too, Brian, and basically what I found from a couple resources is I wanted to know about not the N95 masks, because we all know that those are effective. Those have been used by our healthcare officials for decades, and it's supposed to be effective in combating the virus, etc. But the real point of conversation and difference is homemade face masks and non-surgical masks, right? The stuff that you buy from a gas station or that you make in your home or whatever. So I did a little research, and basically what I gathered today is that COVID particle is 0.8 of a micrometer. Okay, for perspective, the woven gaps in a homemade cloth face mask are 0.1 millimeters, and for reference, that is 1,000 times bigger, and 1,000 times bigger than the COVID particle. Basically, what that means is COVID particle through a cloth face mask able to walk through a gaping black hole into your mouth. Right? So, like, theoretically, like that's just one little fact that I came across that I thought was interesting. And going into further research, I really want to find out like what exactly is the purpose, right? And this has kind of been something that we've talked about for a while. Is like, is the face mask designed to protect you or to protect other people, right? And that's kind of where I don't really know where we are. I don't think we can really agree on that as a country. What's y'all's take on that? Do you think that the face masks are for our own personal protection or for the public protection?
I think it's mainly for protection of other people. To keep.
I think that's what most people see it as. Yeah, for sure.
So while, as I understand it, while that viruses are extremely small, but they're carried in the particles of your breath and saliva. So it's meant to catch all that when you cough or breathe and things like that. But I don't think they're as effective as or super effective in stopping incoming particles. Where it's kind of dissipated from larger particulates of your saliva or whatever that you cough out. So at least that's how I've heard it and understand it.
So what happens when like you're out in public, you have your mask on, you're breathing, whatever, you're being a human, walking around. So as you breathe, say you're a big mouth breather too for some reason. As you breathe out, so like I don't know, the particles coming out of your mouth, do they just kind of sit there and float around for somebody else to come walk in and breathe them in? Or like, how does that transfer occur? And like, do y'all even know? Because I have no clue.
Let me refer back to my medical training.
In theory, yes.
Johns Hopkins.
In theory, they would say yes. That's exactly what happens. And then if you breathe one particle in, you're sick. But that's not how it is at all. You're 80% more likely to catch COVID, to test positive. Test positive doesn't mean you're positive for COVID at all. There's actually a 50% chance that you're not positive. And if you are positive, how deadly actually is it? The numbers came out at 3% pretty early on, World Health Organization and CDC, but we all know that's not true at all. Listen to the science. The science said 3% in the beginning, and we all know it's well less than 0.1 of a percentage. It's right. Tiny. The death percentage is tiny, and even the rate at which it's spread is over calculated. It's the people aren't actually positive when they're testing positive. The president of Tanzania tested fruit and a goat and other stuff for COVID, and he got positive results. How are they infected with the disease that exists in humans? Because that's Tanzanian
fruit, Cameron, not American fruit.
The tests aren't accurate at all. I've heard of people I know personally getting called from the doctor's office and gotten a positive test result, and then called the same day or the next day with sorry, that was actually negative. So with the recent spike in the news, you've seen all over the news, oh, it's spiking again. Oh, it's spiking. COVID cases are spiking. The cases are spiking because they're being falsely reported. A lot of people have looked into this, and hospitals and different places have reported 100% positive test results. And then they've been contacted by journalists and other people researching the information third party and asking these establishments, are you actually testing 100% positive? And they're like, no. And even if they are, then they test again and they get different results. So I think the results are all over the place. The cases are overcounted. The death rates are overcounted. We've all seen the stuff of people, that died from a motorcycle accident or died from pre-existing conditions get put down as a COVID case. We've all seen that. And if you haven't, there's plenty of cases out there you can find. It's the infection rate and the death rate has all been overcalculated from the beginning, and it's nowhere close to as big of a deal as everyone's making it out to be.
Right.
I think if you feel sick and are sick, then you should wear a mask. And if you have pre-existing health conditions that make you especially susceptible to other people's conditions, diseases, germs, whatever, then wear a mask. But as far as everybody else, it's not recommended. There's been plenty of physicians and doctors that don't recommend it. The CDC didn't recommend it for a while. Not recommended.
Yeah, I think it's irrelevant whether or not masks are effective when you're dealing with something that's not that dangerous. Like, why wear a mask when the disease you're trying to protect against isn't going to be that bad if you get it? So.
Right.
Obviously, the thing from the get-go, I don't think any of us here are arguing that, coronavirus doesn't exist, that's not a threat. I think we're just saying that what we're being told about it might be a little bit overblown. And, or maybe a lot of it, depending on who you ask, obviously. So, my question is, why is that the case, right? Like, why has this become so politicized over the last few months? Like, what's the motive here? Is this a media thing? Or are we being fed this fear because it brings us to the news and to the news stations that benefit monetarily from this? Is it, is it government? Like, what's going on here? Like, what are we exactly dealing with here?
I think it has everything to do with the current election coming up. It's just another issue to divide people on, put people in little boxes and figure out which way they're going to lean, so that one person on one side can take one stance to get X amount of people on his side, and then another person can, come out with the complete opposite and get the complete polar viewpoint. I think that plays a big part of it in just dividing and conquering. What do you think, Brian?
Definitely.
I think, part of it is kind of fear mongering. I don't know. It's like I saw something today that there's only been 4,000 deaths from COVID out of, whatever. It was a large number for total cases. And it's like when you break it down just numerically, people have been saying this from the onset that it's not even comparable to the flu every year in terms of mortality. So
are those 4,000 deaths just in Georgia? Do you know?
No,
I can't say. I don't think so. I want to say it's at least nationally or something like that. But
yeah.
Well, there's been reports of. I think they're talking nationally in like hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, it's like 133,000 nationally reported.
Yeah. That's what they're reporting, but of course you can't. You can't trust those numbers. We've seen you can't trust their numbers.
Let's see where I saw that.
So real quick, guys, just a couple points I want to bring up. From like a scientific perspective, just based on like previous pandemics and previous, like sicknesses and etc. So, I read a report the other day. So obviously there were some interesting reports a couple weeks ago about the vaccine, right? So the vaccine's coming out. There's some positive news there about benefits, etc. Y'all are are squinting at me like you have
Gotcha.
no idea what I'm talking about.
That was a state.
Oh, that was a state number, Brian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fact check there. Yeah, it was Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, Garrett.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly following what you're saying.
So there were positive reports like last week about basically vaccine is coming together. There's progress on a vaccine. That's basically all that there was. So I was reading a little bit about it, just kind of curious because the thing that's been going on over the last couple of months is we keep setting dates, right? Oh, by July, by Easter, coronavirus is going to be over. Dude, I swear to God, Siri. So they were saying by
that bitch.
by Easter, coronavirus will be over. By June 1, coronavirus will be over. By July 31, coronavirus will be over. And we just keep moving the goalposts as far as we're setting dates and we're not meeting expectations, and we just keep kicking the can down the road, right?
Yeah.
So the thing as of late that people have been saying is, well, when we get a vaccine, things will be over, right? Okay. And I understand that logic 100%. I do. So I wanted to know a little bit more about the vaccine. So what I read is that, well, actually last week there was $3 billion of money given to 2 or 3 different medical companies to basically come up with a vaccine. So
Wow.
they were given this money and Pfizer I think was one of them and a couple others. So the process behind the vaccine usually takes anywhere from 18 months to about 4 years, depending on the situation, to come up with a effective vaccine. But in the past, like the flu vaccine that you get every year or you don't get every year, depending on where you stand, the flu vaccine does not kill the virus, right? It gives you the virus. It gives you the virus so that you can, sometimes you get sick, sometimes you don't, whatever. I don't know exactly how the process works, but the vaccine that they're working on for the coronavirus is it kills the virus. It's like an mRNA or whatever, some kind of vaccine, right? So it kills the virus. Fun fact, never in record has there been a human approved vaccine of that type that kills a virus. Right. So basically what you're saying is you're trying to come up with a vaccine that has never been done before, and you're trying to do it at a rate that has never been done before in 6 months, 4 months, whatever. That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And if it does, there's so many ethical concerns there where you're talking about giving it to billions of people to the point where you don't even know if it's effective. You don't know, what it's going to do, what the side effects are, what the long-term implications are. That is so sketchy. And my thing is this, right? I agree with the people who want the vaccine to be the end goal, but my thing is this: why are we going to continue to kick the can down the road on our lifestyles and our way of life? The things that we've built, business wise, economy wise, life wise. Why are we going to continue to kick the can down the road on that when we don't even know what that end date is going to be and if it's going to be effective and safe?
Right.
Yeah,
and so Blake, you had swine flu when it came out, right?
I did,
and that thing, see, so that was pretty bad too as well, but so why did COVID get such a crazy reaction with shutting everything down wasn't swine flu just as bad, if not worse? COVID spread quicker or?
So I think swine flu was more deadly than coronavirus, now after all the numbers shake out and stuff. But I think coronavirus is transmitted more easily, just, based on how the virus is.
That's what I was saying about the test. The test didn't have the right time to develop. They didn't develop the test properly. It all revolves around the test. It's being transmitted more easily because more people are being tested positive when they're not actually positive. The swine flu, the death rate was higher because the people that were actually testing positive actually had the swine flu, and it was actually dangerous. Why are they not calling this the bat flu or anything else? They're calling it something else. It's a whole. They came up with a whole nother name that they haven't used before.
SARS-CoV-2.
Yeah, to in my opinion, create fear.
Yeah, I think you have to compare the political climate when the swine flu originated. That's when we were all in 7th grade. Back when things were a little bit more chill when Obama was president. In terms of like,
2009, I think, right?
yeah, it was 09. So a year into Obama's presidency, people weren't at each other's throats as much back then as they are now. So it's just
Social
one of
media.
those
Definitely.
flame topics that get people amped, get people hyped up to freak out about.
Yeah. And that's another one of those instances where, like I was saying last week, when you get that little, I don't know if it's dopamine or serotonin. I don't know exactly what chemical is released when you know you're right about something, but it
It's
makes you
dopamine.
feel good. And there's so many people that have like, I just got done studying biology, or I just got done studying this stuff. You should listen to science. And they feel like they're right all the time about what they're saying. And that you should listen to science. And they're going with the studies. And, I mentioned this earlier on that, oh, the mask cuts down transmission percentage by 80% or whatever. It's like, based on what? Like, show me the study, show me the accurate testing that was done on these people.
Right.
Show me all that before you give me some BS percentage and say listen to the science because you just recently
Right.
got a biology degree.
Yeah, and I don't even know if a lot of the people that are preaching this stuff, Cameron, even have a biology degree, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
like we're all like, first off, I just want to say this. None of us here are science experts, right? We're not. But also, most of the people on your Facebook timeline are not either, right? Like, that's the point, is like, none of us know anything about this shit. The only thing that we know is that it's politicized. It's that there's fear in the air. It's that we have never experienced anything like this in our entire lives. Everyone's life has been affected by this. Everyone's. No one has not been affected by this, right? Do we all have someone in our lives that is immunocompromised, that would get very sick and maybe even deal with, death if they got sick with this virus? Yes, we all have someone in our lives that fits that bill. But the thing is like, that's kind of what has contributed to the fear, is that we're all clinging to that low likelihood that we might contaminate someone who is immunocompromised, whether they're elderly, whether they're sickly, whatever, and get them sick. Like, that's part of the fear, right? Cameron, you're shaking your head. What is it?
I don't know anyone immunocompromised. I know old people. I know my grandmother.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know older people. And yeah, they should take precautions, wear a mask,
Right.
especially if you know somebody is sick around you, wear a mask.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know anybody that has died from COVID, but I know people who have died from suicide, and from
Right.
other causes around this COVID lockdown. Other things, anxiety, just especially about the loss of work and the economy.
Yeah.
It's all been much more detrimental. If you look on the other side of things, more people have been drinking away from work, more doing drugs away from work. When they're not working, they have to find something else to do. And these poor communities, I mean, what are they out there doing? There's a reason the crime rate has gone up. There's a reason that the suicide rate has gone up. It's because of COVID. It's because of the COVID lockdowns. And I think that side of it has been much more detrimental than actual coronavirus itself.
Right. Yeah,
agree.
those are good points, Cameron. Like, go ahead and add to that if you were about to add.
I was just gonna say one, kind of to add on what Cameron was saying. So there's some stat you can look up. It's like for every % rise in unemployment, you add X amount of suicide deaths. They're directly related. When people are out of work, when people can't pay their rent, when you can't feed your family, then some people who are already in a compromised state of mind before coronavirus hit, that's going to make things a lot worse for them. And yeah, it's harming those who are already not in the greatest place. Even without getting sick.
100%, dude. 100%. There's a mental aspect of all this as well. That stems from the quarantine, stems from job loss, etc. Brian, you just mentioned a couple days ago that y'all moved out of the office back to working from home, right?
Yep, work from home for at least 2 more weeks now.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Did
Google
somebody test
announced. I don't know if you
positive
guys
in your
saw
office?
this.
No confirmed case, but somebody was exposed or something like that. Just a message from above saying don't come in.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Google came out today and said that all of their employees will work from home until July of 2021.
Holy shit!
What?
Yeah, so 1 year, 1 full year, 365 days from now, Google employees will be working from home. Listen, I think that, and I really do think that going forward, there's going to be a lot of changes in the workplace. But I feel like that is a move from like the big corporations and Google in this scenario to know that they're going to cut costs in the long term on commercial real estate, on office space, on they pay money so that employees can like have Wi-Fi in their cars that they can work on the way to work. Like all this crazy stuff. Like they're going to save so much money. They see how many dollars they're going to save from all that.
Mm-hmm. Straight to the bottom line.
Yeah, they see the dollars they'll save from that by going this route. Like that's what I think that is as much as safety. That, but anyway, my thing is this, guys. What I'm really worried about. I don't think any of us here are sitting here telling you guys not wear a mask. Not here to not be worried about those around you who could possibly get sick. I think we're just a little bit more worried about like who's driving this narrative. Like why is there so much fear mongering out there? What's real? Kind of like what we talked about, a couple weeks ago. What's real? For me, the thing I'm really worried about is what precedent is this going to set going forward? We have this pandemic and we have this disease that's become rampant, and we were confined to our homes for a month. We have been forced by the government in various areas to wear masks and to stay at home and all these things. Like, what precedent is this setting going forward to where 2021, 2022, there's a new flu outbreak, a new strain that we haven't seen before? Is this how we're going to react every year from now on? That's what I lose sleep about every night, right? Is like, is this, what individual liberties have we given up to our governments, to the companies that we utilize and back, and ourselves? Like what individual liberties and what precedents have been given up in this process? What do y'all think?
I can maybe speak a little bit more on that later, but number one, I want to say don't lose any sleep over any of this, Garrett. I want to say you grow each and every day and grow the things around you each and every day, and don't lose any sleep over any of this fake fear or anything like that. Keep crushing, keep growing, keep moving forward. That's one point I gotta make after you saying that.
Right on. Yeah, dude. I think that's a good point, Cameron. And I'll credit Garrett Potts with this. He and Brian, I think you can kind of double in on this. But Garrett made a really good point to me when we talked a couple months back. It was like, obviously there's this huge thing going out there in the world that we continue to hear about when we turn on the TV screens and stuff. But the one thing that you can control is your own reality, the decisions that you make that govern your own life. Not what is made for you by the government, not what's made for you by the talking heads on news, but just controlling the things that you can control and not worrying about the things that you can, because that's what adds to a lot of the anxiety that we've all seen and experienced during these last few months.
Yes, sir.
So my thing is, I'm worried about the precedents, but at the end of the day, is like, the American people will decide how this is going to be handled going forward. As we learn more about COVID and its impacts and long term, and we are able to reflect on what it was and what we learned. My prayer is that we'll realize, wow, that was overblown. We never need to do that again. Just move forward. There are, anyway.
What are some
closing
positives?
Thoughts on that?
So that was a pretty intense and serious discussion. I think a good way to end it is on a positive note. So with every major thing that happens to society, there's always negatives and positives to it. The nuclear discussion definitely harps on that. What are some positives you guys think are gonna come out of this? I'll share some of my thoughts first. So I think people are gonna start taking their health more seriously. Especially after realizing that those who are healthy, those who get out in the sun, those who exercise and eat right, are less likely to be affected by a virus like this. And also, a lot of people who have been stuck at home have been taking time to focus on themselves, whether it be reading a book or just doing physical exercise to make yourself feel better. So that's one. I think people are starting to really focus on their health a lot more. America has really just historically not been the most healthy country. If you look at if you just look around when you go to your local Walmart, you can see that. Um, but yeah,
That's
I think
hilarious.
I think people are going to start focusing on both physical and mental health. Realize the importance of that, which is I think that's a positive that's going to come out of this.
Absolutely.
I think
What do y'all
it's
think?
forced connectedness, through our various technologies, Zoom. I mean, we're recording this on Discord right now, all four of us in a different spot. So how the tools are there. Granted, we might not be able to speak in person and whatnot, but just like reaching out is a lot easier than you think it normally was. I don't know, or maybe always was.
Yep.
Cameron?
We all got to depend on each other.
Definitely, yeah. It's exposed things for a lot of people, I think. It's exposed your daily habits, your daily routines, what you might do without work. If you don't go to work, what do you do? What do you do in the morning before work? What do you do when you get home? What are the things you really care about besides work? If you couldn't work, how would you feed your family? Stuff like that, I think is very important. It's shown people a lot during this time. And I hope people really grow from it, realize where they're lacking and why they're lacking. Um, and I think it's just been a great time for everybody to grow. One thing we've done, me, my brother, and his wife, my sister-in-law, and their daughter, my niece, have done is try to grow some food. If we can't go to the store, I don't know if you can see that here. Anybody watching or you guys here on the stream can see all that garden bed behind me and all the growth and food coming from it. If you can't go to the grocery store, if you decide that you don't want to cover up your face and hide your humanity, um, but you still want food, how do you get that food? If Walmart is actually going to stand by their requirements, if Target, if Kroger, if Publix is actually going to stand by their requirements, who knows? Today I walked into Walmart actually to get this little 6-pack of Terrapin Hopsecutioners. I walked in there, my face looking like it is, and I walked right out. Not a word said to me about being some kind of walking disease or anything. I just walked in there as a human, and I walked out as a human. So I think that's important to keep with us, and important to grow. Like I said, grow your own food. Figure out your own way, and don't depend on the system so much. I think you'll hear more of that out of me. I'm into the conspiracies. I'm into that side of everything. I'm into making it by yourself without relying on the system. But I'll let that be it for what I say on that.
You're so brave.
Cameron drops.
Well, don't go to Petco. They
Yeah.
don't let you in without a mask.
Poor
Learn that the
Rocco
hard way.
can't eat his crickets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cameron drops the mic on that one. Guys, my thing is one word: appreciation. Appreciation for your free. Appreciation for your lifestyle. Whether it be you stop at this place, this coffee spot on the way to your work, or you love to go out to a restaurant but they're closed, or you love to just go to the grocery store and you gotta wear a mask. Just whatever. Appreciation for your lifestyle and appreciation for those around you. What you've got, what you don't have. That's been my biggest takeaway over the last few months. Appreciating what I had before all this shit hit the fan. So, guys, we're gonna end it on that. Speaking of appreciation, we are so appreciative of you guys tuning in and staying in touch with us all the way throughout this episode. We feel like we hit on a few pretty controversial, pretty thought-provoking subjects, and we hope that you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. Go ahead and be on the lookout for episode 5 coming soon, hopefully next week, and we'll have some more content for you guys. That's my last word. Are your hearts and minds clear, guys?
Hey, send us your thoughts, guys. Those of you who are listening to the stream, send us some questions. Let us know what you think of the
definitely.
podcast.
Do we have anything in the chat right now? Do we have anything brewing up?
Our
Anybody
good
chatting in
friend
the chat?
Ryan and Reed Bowman have been lighting up the chat. Ryan wants to be a guest star. He wants to be a guest.
Heck yeah. We'll get some guests
Hey,
on here soon. I know there's people that have been wanting to get on here, and we'll have people on here for sure. I'm excited for it. I want to hear what they had to say. We'll focus in on some topics they're experts in.
Yeah, we got hop in line, Ryan, because we got a line of about 12 people who are just dying to get on the show and guest hosts. But this is Garrett. We've got Cameron. We've got Blake, and we've got Brian Eduardo. This has been Bona Fide Talk. This was thought-provoking, sincere, genuine conversation given straight to the listener. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thanks for listening, guys.